Hi everyone, I'm Aarti Deveshar. Welcome to my studio. In my last video, I showed you how I played around with the Sculpt Air Dry kit, and as you can see, the box is now empty. I used all the clay that was in it. At the end of the last video, you saw that I had whitewashed all the pieces that I made, and this time I'm going to show you how I'm going to paint them using gouache and acrylic, and then putting a sealant on top at the end to make them waterproof. At least, that's the theory. I will test to see if they are indeed waterproof. As always, please do click the like button if you enjoy my video, and do subscribe. I release videos every 2 weeks on a Friday evening. Now let's get into this, shall we? As you can see, I've prepared my workspace. I've got all my pre-coated bits and pieces right there ready. I've got some acrylic matte medium in case I need to dilute my acrylic paints, which are right over here. They're mostly System 3 and some Daler-Rowney. And then I've got my gouache palette right here as well. I'm going to do some pieces in that. And my water and my pens and bits and things. And a prepped surface. For the first piece, I started out with the simplest one. For this bowl, all I wanted was a nice gold edge. For this, I mixed some gum arabic with Pearl Ex powder from Jacquard, and that gave me a really nice metallic edge. I really like how it turned out. For the next few pieces, I chose the hearts. I did leave some of the hearts pure white, but I wanted to paint these so that I could use them as props or just stick them up in my bookshelf just to look kind of cute, and just to have a memory of my little gift from my sister, and after all, she gave it to me with love. I used acrylic paint for these hearts, and I mixed a combination of burgundy, red, and white to get some pinks and reds that were a little deeper than the color that came straight out of the tube. They turned out really pretty. For the rest of the pieces, I ended up using gouache. I did slightly regret it towards the end because it did smudge, but then I'll show you that when I show you how I did the sealant. As you can see, it's pretty self-explanatory. I painted all the pieces in the original designs that I had thought that I would do them. These pomegranates particularly came out so nicely. I really loved the pink. As you can see, I'm just doing the base coat so that it can dry before I put any details on the top. I kept most of the leaves plain colored, and I'll show you them later. But this particular one, I just wanted to have a really nice kind of autumny feel. And then I painted a few baubles just in plain colors, which I thought I could use later on for just display or to hang in my studio. And I thought it'd just make a nice chirpy little decoration. I painted this little plate in silver on the back, and I'll do a design on the front later on. Here's how the pomegranate pendant ended up looking. I think I'll use this more as a pendant than I will as an ornament. And then here's the little case in which I'm going to keep my lip balms. Again, I did this in silver because my studio is mostly white and grey, and I thought it would really match the whole setting. Other than that, here's how the hearts turned out when they dried. A little bit of texture, which I love. And then here are the other pieces that I painted. I did some silver leaves, some gold leaves, and the same with the stars. And then there's the bowl that I painted for the first piece. I think it looks rather elegant. All of the pieces turned out pretty well, and I really like how they've dried as well. I've got to paint the biscuit part of this Jammy Dodger, and obviously my brush rests and my husband's nose. Speaking of which, here we go. He has a really thick, big black beard, and that's exactly what I painted. I did stylize his hair a little bit, and I even put in his thick eyebrows, but I painted his eyelids shut because he has lovely long eyelashes, and I really wanted to highlight those. I don't know how he's going to react to this little piece. But I think it is really cute, and I really like how it turned out. Next up were my two little brush rests. I painted the whale in a traditional indigo blue, and I was planning to add more details later. And then while it dried, I painted the koi fish in the traditional orange and gold. I did think of doing really detailed scales, but since I'm going to use it as a brush rest and it's supposed to be a practical piece, I didn't want to add too much detail that might possibly get splattered with paint later on. But I did end up using a finger smudge technique to add a little bit of texture over the top section of it. For both brush rests, I left the sections where my brush would actually rest white because I think it just looks nicer like that and it kind of emphasizes the actual use of the piece. Many of the other pieces I did are purely decorative, but these are, in particular, are going to be used by me every single day, I think. Here I'm adding the gold, and now you can see the exact detail of those pieces. After this, I started adding more detail on the pieces that had already dried. I put black details on a couple of the hearts and then added some white highlights, and then I left the third one completely without any outlines at all, just to provide some contrast. I used similar detail to my pink pomegranate art print on this pendant, and then I used a few dots and dashes on the other pomegranate to add some more detail to that one. I think it gave it a little more dimension without making it overworked. The lemon slice, of course, was a graphic representation of a lemon, and I did the little slices in Posca white pen. For the green lime, I used a black Sharpie to give it those graphic details because I thought it gave it a better contrast. Then there were a few white details, and I moved on to the Jammy Dodger, for which I added lovely gold details and then some white highlights. I'm definitely going to use this as a paperweight just to remind me of the lovely biscuits. Next up, the fig. This could also kind of look like an onion. I realized later on it could be a sliced red onion or a fig. The pickle, of course, had to have nice black details and a few white highlights, simply to make it shine. For these lemons, I'll be honest, they didn't really work out the way I'd sketched them out because I just kind of winged it a little bit. But then I guess there's a place for that too, right? I added some black details and I added some white detailing, and I think they turned out pretty cute. This one has a gold leaf, and I left the back completely white and blank so that I could use it as a prop if I wanted to. For this one, I wanted to put "If Life Gives You Lemons" on the top, but I really didn't leave enough space for that. So it just says a lemon. Kind of obvious, isn't it? Here's another piece that I sort of winged. I painted the edges and the back in indigo blue mixed with ultramarine, one of my favorites. And then I did a little fish pattern. I've been obsessed with fish for quite a long time and I draw them a lot, usually in this sort of sardine shape. And then I added a few little dots and dashes detail, which is also part of my style. And I used Polychromos pencils for this bit. I'm pretty chuffed with how it turned out. And I feel like this might be a good gift for my sister and she might like to put her rings in it or something. We'll see. Here's the second bowl that I showed earlier. Well, it's more like a little plate, isn't it? I just decided to do a little spiral design using a silver Posca pen. And I think that this is one that I will keep upstairs on my bedside table, along with my husband's face, just to keep little trinkets in, maybe my rings when I go to bed, or the earrings that I've been wearing that day, perhaps. I think it's just really, really nice looking. Then I started adding some details to the little baubles. I think the black one is the only one that I really put any level of detail on. Everything else just had borders because the colors are so rich. I didn't want it to detract from that aspect of these little pieces. I completely forgot to record when I was painting the little dashes on this pot, but that's all I did, along with a little silver rim to match the other bowls that I'm going to have in my studio as well. And then I'm going to add a few little details because while I like this, it looks kind of like a wave, I feel like I need a few more details on it. And then I decided to put some silver dashes and added a few little sardines, just like the little plate. I feel like maybe I could put the plate side by side if my sister wants the other one, perhaps. And if she does take the fishy plate, then I still have the fish on this to remind me of what that plate looked like. I really am obsessed with fish at the moment, aren't I? Turned out pretty nice. I might use it for my pens and pencils instead of my brushes though. After I did that container, I was inspired to do similar dots and dashes on the koi fish, but more to add detail than anything else. I used a gold Posca pen and a white Posca pen to add those details all over it. And then of course I added the two little whiskers and some black dashes on the bottom. For the whale, I did something similar. I added more black detail all over it, especially on the tail, just to simulate a sort of real whale, but not quite, if you know what I mean. Then I added the dots and dashes all over the sides and then highlighted its eyes and its blowhole with a white pen. I really loved the color on this one, and the way that the detail came out makes me really happy. I also added some white into its mouth just to kind of highlight it a little bit, and I think it turned out really, really well. All in all, that was really, really fun to do. As I said, this is one of my favorite gifts ever, and yes, I would absolutely gift it to someone else. This little fella is definitely my favorite. Look how nicely he turned out. Looks so peaceful. I really, really like this piece. All of the other pieces turned out well, I think, too. And the colors are really vibrant the way I wanted them. I did leave most of the backs blank so that I could use them for other things. Everything really turned out pretty. And I think that's the key word. It's really, really pretty and cheerful and very, very me. Here's how the baubles turned out, and the jammy dodger turned out pretty as well. And the brush rests, of course. And then these ones I painted in grey and silver and gold. I think you saw them earlier. I did do the back on the silver, but I didn't do the back on the gold one. I'm not quite sure why. I might go back and redo that one. The bowl you saw earlier, and that's how I'm going to use it, and as well for my lipstick holder. This little plate looks extremely neat and tidy and shiny, and I'm pretty happy with that one as well. So did this one. Love, love, love the blue. I'm also very glad that I did the fishes in pencil because it gives them some nice texture. And obviously the matching pencil pot as well with the fishes. I'm really looking forward to using this piece. Actually, it's going to sit right next to my computer so I can see it every single day. All of the rest of the pieces turned out very vibrant. I did, of course, leave some plain white because I want to use them both as decorations. But my favorite pieces definitely have to be these two little ones. I'm so happy with how they turned out. I feel like they have quite a character of their own. Feels like he's smirking at me, doesn't it? I'm glad I made two because each of them has space for 3 brushes. So I don't really have to. Actually, this one has space for 4, I've just noticed. So 7 brushes in total I could use with these two fellas. And I love how the mottled effect on the koi turned out as well. And now I'm going to leave these for a day or so, and then they will be ready to seal with the sealant that came with this kit. The sealant that came with the Sculpt kit turned out to be something like Mod Podge. It's just basically white glue, so when you paint it on, as you can see on the pieces in the background, it just creates a sort of pale, translucent cover or coating on the pieces. But one of the sad disadvantages I will just show you in a minute. This bowl looks all right, and so does this one. It looks pretty even, but the gouache has spread on this piece. It has bled, and this one has bubbled, and so has this one. I really don't know why these pieces bubbled, but some of them have bubbled in some places and some haven't. And it's really, really strange, and some of them have peeled. I think it's just not artist's quality sealant or paint that they sent for the undercoat. I would probably recommend using your own paint, or next time I do something like this, I'll definitely use my own acrylic paints. But all in all, look how beautifully they turned out. I put a silver wrapped twine in all the ones that had holes as ornaments. I'm really loving the leaves. I'm not quite sure about the colored leaves. I really like the white ones. The hearts, well, you can see how the bubbles dried here. I suppose I could peel it off and redo them, but they're not quite so obvious in any case, so I could probably use them. There's quite a lot of bubbling on a fair few pieces, which I'm very disappointed about, but you can't see them from a distance, so I guess it's all right. These colourful baubles are definitely going to be displayed in my studio, and I'm going to put all of these, oh, definitely this one on my bedside table, but you can see how the bubbling has affected it. I might actually peel this one off and repaint it and reseal it. Here are the brush rests in action. This is exactly how I'll be using them. And I double sealed these ones. I mean, I painted them over twice just to make sure that none of the water from any of the brushes is going to ruin them. And I might see if I can get an acrylic clear coat as well. The bowls obviously turned out well. I left the bleeding on the blue one because I don't think it makes too much of a difference. It kind of looks cute still. If it was a product for sale, I would have redone it. This one as well turned out nicely, no bubbling at all. I haven't yet sealed my pencil pot because I don't want it to bubble on the outside. So I think I might just put acrylic primer on this rather than using the sealant that came with the Sculpt kit. So that one is still a work in progress, still to be finished, but I'm pretty happy with the rest. I'd love to know what you thought of the way that I colored all these pieces and whether you would have left some uncolored as well like I have. Really love the movement too. Now, if you did like this video, please do click the like button and subscribe to my channel for more. I put out videos every 2 weeks on a Friday night, and I look forward to seeing you at the premiere so we can have a little chat about all these little baubles. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!